Mm, Yes, hello to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. I would like to zoom out to take a wider view of this issue, to look over the past few decades and make a few observations about certain patterns that have involved in the US and EU-Iran relationship surrounding the nuclear issue. It looks to me like these patterns may be set to repeat. This is talk of Ahmadinejad running again for president in the election coming up this year. It is worth remembering the context of his first victory, which was related to Iran's nuclear program and Western concerns about it. Whether or not Ahmadinejad wins, it seems sadly that history is repeating itself. Hardliners maybe do well in this election. Ahmadinejad was preceded by Khatami, who was in office from 1997 and 2000 and to 2005. Khatami, you will recall, has a theory and wrote a book about dialogue of civilization. He was the symbol of a friendly Iran, friendlier towards the West. That this policy was seen to have failed is what gave Ahmadinejad such a strong position in his first election in 2005. Under Khatami, Iran took a softer stance towards the West and halted Iranian enrichment um, in 2004 for a time. Europeans, meaning mainly England, Germany, and France, urged Iran to do this and promised to influence the United States to take a softer position on Iran. The deal fell apart though. The US refused to provide guarantees to the Iranian side, in particular, a non aggression guarantee. Many in Iran thought that Iran had lost valuable time and had been played for a fool, that the US was never interested in any agreement. Thus, a soft line changed to hard line in Iran. There is a real danger of the same thing happening now. While Iran desperately needs sanctions relief, many Iranian politicians feel Iran was again played for a fool by making concessions and compromises, only to have the most powerful partner in the nuclear agreement back out of it. Now the US has a president who seems willing to return partly to the Obama administration's Iran policy, but with Iranian presidential elections coming at the end of this summer, Biden may have only a few months to try to bring what's left of the deal back to life. The window is rapidly closing. If we look at the presidents of both countries over the past few decades, we see that to a certain extent, negotiations between the two countries have been the victims of the capriciousness of democracy and partly because of the toxic history shared by Iran and the United States. Often, when a president on one side is willing to negotiate, the other country will elect a hardliner. Bush and Khatami, no chance of deal, or Trump and Rouhani, no chance of deal are examples. The nuclear deal was signed when the terms of a US and Iranian president who were willing to negotiate overlapped. Obama and Rouhani in 2015. But it seems like that might be the exception, and the rule is for this presidential cycles not to fall in line. What also speaks against the success of restarting the deal is that despite Biden and the Democracy Party's passionate anti-Trump rhetoric, Biden seems to support some of the Trump's administration's position on Iran, mainly that a nuclear deal with Iran must limit Iranian activities outside the nuclear sphere as well, ballistic missiles, for example. Will the desperate straits of the Iranian economy force the Iranians to swallow their pride and return to the negotiating table? Much depends on the upcoming elections. Further complications, Soleimani and other incidents. Last year began with the assassination of the commander of the Iran's Al-Quds Force, General Soleimani. The year ended with a murder of a scientist. These blows will not make negotiations any easier. One version of events is that General Soleimani was traveling with a message to improve relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. He was, according to this version, not on a military mission at all. Indeed, Soleimani had acted as a mediator on many occasions with China and with Russia. He was not just a commander. I myself was in Serbia on the eve of the assassination. I was attending the interparliamentary talks between Iran, Serbia, Turkey, Russia, and other countries. And the speaker of the Iranian Majlis, Ali Larijani, said that Iran wanted to improve relations with Saudi Arabia, but the Trump administration was doing everything it could to block it. Israel and Saudi Arabia are Iran's two most powerful enemies in the Middle East. If Iran were to come to an agreement with Saudi Arabia, it would be a huge blow to Israel and the American hopes. The Americans wanted to intimidate Iran to gain support in Iraq, but stifling the protest movements and demonstration that was there, including demonstration against excessive Iranian influence. And Iran was dealt a terrible blow after the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. Tehran limited itself to firing missiles at US bases and using force against US allies in the region. Only the murder of nuclear physicist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh in December of the same year, coinciding with the planning of a bill to lift sanctions against Iran and the victory of Joe Biden in the presidential election, led to Iran beginning to enrich uranium again to 20% and step back from other limits in the nuclear deal. So even if negotiations do happen between US and Iran, there will be much more outcome in the few months remaining before before summer elections than than simply the Americans leaving the nuclear deal. It will be a hard road. Thank you very much for your attention.